So, we have sort of designed this to be, to go over all the different parts of this, but it's absolutely great to bring up questions at any point in time because I'll just skip some of this stuff when we get to it. So feel free. I was just sitting here thinking maybe what we should do is like give you the basics and then let everybody ask questions. All right, so I'm going to be talking about how to access the data, right? I'm Jill Darling. I'm the survey director for the UAS, which I've not managed to actually introduce myself this whole time, and I apologize for that. But I'm just going to walk you through now how to access all of this amazing data that Marco just told us about. And then Francisco will show us the data visualization site where you can look at data without needing to be a registered user. All right, so as I just mentioned, the survey data is collected as human subjects research data. No identifiers in the data files. Instead, we tag individuals with the study code called the UAS ID. The UAS ID can then be used to merge or link all of the UAS data together at the individual level and also to be able to track change over time in the panel. So with only a few exceptions, as I mentioned, we don't require IRB approval to access the data. If you need IRB approval to conduct your own analysis, that's between you and your institute. And you can submit, as I mentioned, for a not human subjects approval. So the data, the requirements that we have for this is that the data can be accessed only for research use. So it can't be used for, other kinds of uses. You need to be affiliated with a research institution or have a research position. We also make data available for educational purposes to students. They just need to have their data use agreement signed by their professor or advisor. We have also worked with professors who would like to make some data available to a class, for example. If you have a classroom and there's some teaching to go on, we can work with you on making just a very limited data set with a few variables, make a sparse data set that have no identifiers that can be shared then without a DUA in a classroom. So that's something that you can just talk to us about, and we'll work through how difficult it is to do it. We've tried various different things, including making everybody in the class sign a DUA, and this seems to be really the simplest way forward. So as I mentioned, it's not human subjects data from your point of view. All right, so the way you do this is you sign up for a user account. And that's the first step. You can go to uasdata.usc.edu. Way down there on the right, the login that Marco didn't talk about, but if you click on login, register there, you can fill out the form and then return the DUA that's provided. And then once you are a member, you just log in down there and you have access to those data files that Marco showed you. So the data is categorized into 3 tiers, as Ari mentioned, with associated data use agreements and requirements for each kind. I'm going to go through them very briefly. If you want more information on them, you can visit this spot on the menu, and it will give you the overview of these tiers and what's required for each, and with links to where you go to get more information and data use agreements. So just go up to the uasdata.usc.edu website and click on that. Also, these slides are going to be available, and we're going to have these recordings available. So there's lots of ways to remember how to find these things. All right, so I'll go through these one by one and just talk about what's in them a little bit. I think Ari already started to do this some. Basically, the first level codes from our yearly labor and occupation survey are included in the survey data files, but the more granular level are included in tier 2. But the rest of the data that we have, the survey data, panel recruitment and participation data, all of our data products and all of that, that's all tier 1. That just requires a data use agreement that's signed by the researcher. Tier 2, as I mentioned, the first level codes are available in the data for occupation codes, but second and third level, you just need to put in a sensitive data addendum to access those. And also considered sensitive are our very granular election tracking data, and then any data we may have linked to external data. For example, if you want us to link survey data to county level data on traffic for analysis or something along those lines, we can actually do that linkage for you behind the scenes and take out all the location information, or perhaps leave a dummy location variable for analysis. But by doing this, we are adding the potential for there being sort of inadvertent identifiers, and we just need a little bit more the indirect identifiers. This makes it sensitive data. And so a DUA needs to be signed by the researcher and by someone who has authority to sign on behalf of the university. Generally, that's somebody from your IRB or research office. And then finally, the tier 3 level data. This is data that it has to be done in the enclave because you're working with geocodes, as already been mentioned, which add location identifiers, or survey data linked to restricted data, such as the CMS data that we have for consenting participants right now. And then once again, data that may include inadvertent identifiers or actually outright identifiers such as social media handles, names of local schools, and things like that. So for this, a little more complicated because there is a process to apply for a work site in our enclave. You submit the enclave application and return an enclave data use agreement. The DUA is signed by the researcher, once again, a representative of the research institution. Generally speaking, an IRB is going to need to be provided. In some cases, you have to. If you want to work with CMS data, that's a requirement, a CMS requirement. If you're working with geocodes, once again, that's a requirement. If there are certain circumstances in which the work will be not human subjects, but you still probably need to go through that process. All right, so let me just tell you a little bit about the enclave. This is funded by the National Institute of Aging. This is a federally compliant platform that is intended for research for centers of Medicare and Medicaid services data sets linked to NIA-sponsored data sets such as the UAS. They're one of our major funders, along with SSA. And the linkage enclave can be used by research teams wishing to link UAS survey data with other external data, as we mentioned, but also working with restricted or sensitive data. We are very happy to be able to do all of the kinds. It doesn't have to just be CMS work in there. So a workspace is provided with software, generally R, SAS, and Stata, and other requests are considered. It's not always easy to get other things, but you can always ask. Basically, the output from the enclave is monitored and approved before download. This means that you can take out statistical reports, manuscripts, presentations, programs, no data can come out. So a standard way of working it's a remote access enclave. You don't actually have to be on site. So the data that's available in the workspace are all of our UAS survey data and data products are in there already. And the occupation codes, as I mentioned, researcher linked data files. So if people do work on putting together linked files, we'll have those in there and available to others as well, in the interests of creating a platform where everything that we do is hopefully available for others to be able to use. Mentioned the geocode and UAS ID crosswalks to be able to do that linking, and all the various kinds of CMS data that are available. All of this is on our website. If you go to that tier 3 site that I showed you, you'll see these lists. All right, that's it. I'm happy to take questions.